I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am trying to make sense of everything. My name's Mike, and for the past 10 years I thought I had a pretty ordinary marriage with my wife Lisa. We met in college, got married right after, and had a pretty normal life working jobs, raising our son, enjoying weekends at the park or watching his little league games. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. Or at least I did until this season's Little League championship. It all started to feel off when Lisa began acting weird around that time. She was more irritable, snapping at small things and sometimes just ignoring me altogether. I chalked it up to stress. Work was busy, and I figured she was just tired. But then I started noticing little things. She was hiding her phone more than usual, locking it when she got a text, which she never used to do. She also started keeping her phone on silent all the time, even during family dinners or when we were watching TV. I thought maybe she was just being secretive, but I didn't have concrete proof, so I told myself to keep an eye on her. Then the biggest clue hit me out of nowhere. It was after the game, the championship game which our son Tim had been so pumped about. We all went to the field afterward to celebrate. I was gathering the gear in the equipment room, stuff like bats, gloves, water bottles, when I saw her. Lisa was inside and she was not alone. She was with an older guy, someone I vaguely recognized from work, but I couldn't remember his name. She was pressed up against him, whispering, and I saw her hand trailing down to his jeans. They were clearly kissing, and when I peeked through the door crack, I saw enough. My mind just froze. My stomach dropped. I stared, unable to believe what I was seeing. Lisa, my wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me at our son's little league game, of all moments. She was practically groping this guy, and I realized with sickening certainty that this wasn't a one-time thing. There were too many signs, and now I had undeniable proof. I didn't move right away. I just backed out quietly and stood outside the door trying to process what I'd seen. My mind was a jumble: anger, hurt, betrayal, and this overwhelming sense that everything I believed about us was a lie. I waited until I was alone in the car, just sitting there staring at the steering wheel, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I wanted to scream, cry, smash something, anything to get this pain out. How could she do this? How could she be so callous, so reckless? In that moment, I knew I couldn't keep quiet. I had to confront her, but I didn't know how or when. All I knew was nothing was ever going to be the same again. The drive home was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My hands were trembling and my head was spinning with all the images I'd just seen. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I sat there for a minute, trying to gather myself, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew I couldn't just forget what I'd seen. That would be impossible. But I also knew I needed to approach her carefully, if I approached her at all. I was angry, hurt, betrayed, and honestly, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion. Lisa greeted me at the door like everything was normal, smiling that fake, innocent smile she always uses when she knows she's hiding something. I could see right through it. Her eyes twitched, and her voice was a little too cheerful as she asked how my day was. I just looked at her and said, "We need to talk." That sentence hung in the air like a bomb ready to go off. She looked at me, that annoyed look creeping on her face. She tried to brush it off, saying, "Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. What's wrong? Did you see something at the game?" I didn't say anything at first. Instead, I just stared at her, trying to gauge her next move. My mind was racing 100 miles an hour. I told her I knew about her and that guy in the equipment room. Her face instantly twisted into this defensive smirk, like she thought she could deny it, like I was just imagining things. "What are you talking about? There's nothing going on," she said, brushing past me and heading toward the kitchen. That's when I snapped. I called her out, told her I saw what she was doing, that I'd seen her kiss him, that I'd seen her groping him. Her reactions were kind of typical: denial, deflection, accusations that I was paranoid or jealous. But I wasn't jealous. I was furious. I told her I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore, that I'd seen enough. Her eyes flashed with contempt, and she spat back that I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was just insecure because I couldn't handle her talking with a guy from work. But I knew the truth, plain and simple. I saw her with my own eyes. Nothing she said could undo that. I remember feeling this deep, gnawing ache in my chest, like I'd just lost the part of me I'd always trusted. I'd loved her, I really had, and right then, that love felt like it was being shredded apart. I looked at her and for a moment I thought about asking her why. Why did she do it? Was it just sex? Did she think I was too boring, too distant? Did she think she'd get away with it? But before I could say anything else, she just scoffed, rolled her eyes, and told me to stop being so dramatic. She said she'd been stressed, that she was overwhelmed with how the season was going and that it didn't mean anything. She told me I was overreacting, that I should just trust her. That's when I knew this wasn't just some moment of weakness. This was who she was. She was a liar, a manipulator, and someone who thought she could just brush this off like it was nothing. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I told her I needed some time to think, that I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen what I saw. She just shrugged and said she'd be upstairs, ignoring me as if I was invisible. That silence, that cold, dismissive attitude was worse than any yelling or screaming. It made me realize how much she didn't care about me, about us. As I stood there staring at the door she just walked through, I felt my hands shake even more. I'd never felt so betrayed in my entire life. I knew, right then, that my world was shifting. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I was certain of one thing. I couldn't let her get away with this without consequences. The trust was shattered, and I had to figure out if I was going to fight for us or walk away. Either way, I knew my life was never going to be the same. The night that followed was a blur. I stayed up in the living room, sitting in the dark, staring at the phone in my hand, unsure whether to call someone or just sit there and dwell on what I'd seen. I kept replaying the scene in my head over and over. Lisa's face pressed against that guy, her hands all over him, the betrayal in her eyes when I caught her. It felt like a punch to the gut every time. I was so furious I wanted to smash something, but I also felt a deep ache of sadness I couldn't shake. I kept asking myself how she could be so callous, so reckless. We had a son, for God's sake. How could she throw away everything we'd built just for a quick fuck with some guy from work? I kept thinking about all the moments we'd shared, all the plans for our future, and how stupid I'd been to believe everything was fine. That's when I realized I needed to confront her again, but this time I had to be strategic. The next morning I woke up early, knowing I couldn't just sit around and wait for her to come down. I had a plan. I was going to get some answers, and if she refused to give them, I'd make sure she did. I didn't want to jump straight into accusations, but I knew I had to push her. I brewed some coffee, made my way upstairs, and found her lying in bed scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered, her eyes narrowing like she was already annoyed. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, voice steady but firm. She rolled her eyes, but I kept going. "I saw what I saw yesterday. I know about you and that guy in the equipment room. I saw the kiss, I saw the hands. I want to hear it from you, what's going on." Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk that annoyed me so much. "Oh, come on, Mike, you're overreacting. That was just a stupid moment, nothing serious. We're just friends, okay? It meant nothing." I stared at her, my jaw clenched. "Just friends, you're all over him, Lisa. Don't lie to me. I saw you kissing him. I saw you groping him after the game. And I want to know why you did it, why you lied to me all this time." She sat up in bed, crossing her arms. "Look, Mike, I don't owe you any explanations. I was stressed, okay? The season's been hard on all of us. That doesn't mean I don't love you. It's just sex, and it didn't mean anything. You're blowing this out of proportion. I was upset and I just needed some comfort, that's all." I couldn't believe her. The way she was spinning it like I was the crazy one. I felt like I was about to lose my mind. "Comfort? You call that comfort? You're cheating on me, Lisa. While I was cheering for Tim at the game, you were in that equipment room with another man, making out and touching him like you don't give a damn about our marriage." She rolled her eyes again and scoffed. "You're so dramatic. You always blow things out of proportion. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to find comfort somewhere else. You think I'm happy. You think I'm satisfied. No, I'm not. But that doesn't mean I want to throw everything away over one stupid mistake." That was the moment I realized her lies weren't going to stop. She was trying to twist it, make me feel guilty, like I was the problem. But I knew the truth. She'd been lying, sneaking around, cheating on me, and now she was just trying to manipulate me into thinking I was crazy for getting upset. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. This wasn't just some fling, it was outright betrayal. I told her I needed some space, that I wasn't ready to talk anymore. I was hurt, angry, and confused, and I couldn't process everything in one go. She looked at me like I was some obstacle in her life, and I realized that if I stayed, I'd just be enabling her lies. I needed to step back, get my head straight, and figure out what came next. For now, I just wanted her to leave me alone. I needed to think about what this all meant, about our relationship, our family, our future. Everything was falling apart, and honestly, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. Over the next few days, I stayed in my own head, trying to piece everything together. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her smile, that fake one, and I felt the rage boiling up inside me again. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive, so blind. We'd always had our issues, sure, but I never thought she'd betray me like this, right in our own home, behind my back. The worst part was, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still lying, still hiding something. I kept thinking about how her behavior had changed over the last few weeks, more distant, more irritable. It was like she was trying to hide her true self. I'd catch her sneaking around, deleting messages, locking her phone. And that day at the game, it all just came crashing down. I remembered how she froze when I first confronted her. Like she'd been caught in a lie, and I knew I had to do something more. I couldn't just let her keep lying and pretending everything was fine. So, I started digging. I didn't want to be a guy who just stormed in accusing her without proof, but I needed something concrete. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do, just to get some clarity. I told myself I wasn't trying to ruin her, but I needed to know if this was a pattern or just a one-time mistake. When the pie Mark called me back with his report, I felt like I was punched in the stomach all over again. According to him, Lisa had been seeing that guy Mark from work at least 3 times in the past month. He had photos of them together, sneaking into hotels, meeting in parking lots, even one outside her office building. The worst part, they'd been texting non-stop explicit messages about what they'd do to each other. I stared at those messages in disbelief. My wife, my partner, was not just cheating. She was actively planning, or at least fantasizing about, a future with this guy. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again. My stomach clenched and I could feel the tears welling up. The anger, the hurt, it all exploded inside me. I called her that night and I forced myself to stay calm, to sound as composed as possible. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the hotel meetings, the messages. Her response was classic her denial on steroids, trying to tell me I was mistaken, that I must have misunderstood. She said she was just stressed, that it was nothing serious, and that I was overreacting. I didn't buy it. Not anymore. I could see it in her face, the guilty look, the way she avoided my eyes. I knew it was over. I had enough proof to walk away, and honestly, part of me wanted to. I was tired of feeling like a fool, tired of feeling betrayed, tired of feeling like I was living someone else's nightmare. But another part of me was still holding on, hoping, maybe foolishly, that there was some truth to her excuses. Maybe she'd say she'd stop, that she'd change. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I sat in the dark, feeling more alone than I ever had. I thought about my son Tim and what kind of future we had now. Did I want him growing up in a house where his mom was cheating? Did I want to stick around for more lies, more pain? The answer was complicated, and it tore me apart. I knew I had to decide soon, whether to fight for this marriage or to cut my losses and walk away. But right then, I just felt numb. It was like everything I'd ever trusted was gone, blown apart by a woman I thought I knew. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. I oscillated between anger, sadness, and a weird numbness that felt worse than the pain. Every time I saw Lisa, I felt like I was looking at a stranger, someone I once loved, now just a stranger who betrayed me in the worst way possible. I kept replaying everything, the secret texts, the hotel meetings, her lies. And honestly, I felt a deep sense of shame, like I'd been so stupid to believe in her, to trust her. I had built my entire life around her, and now I was faced with the brutal reality that It was all a lie. I knew I needed to make a decision. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that this wasn't just a passing phase or some mistake. It was a betrayal that cut deep, and I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was constantly doubting, constantly feeling like I was walking on eggshells. I sat down with myself and asked what I wanted, whether I still wanted her, whether I could forgive her, whether I even could be around her without feeling like I was drowning in pain. None of those questions had easy answers, but I knew I had to face them. One night, after another sleepless evening, I finally sat her down and told her I couldn't do this anymore. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the messages, the hotel meetings. I told her I didn't think I could trust her again, not after what I'd seen and what I'd uncovered. I told her I wanted her to leave, to give me some space, to think about what I needed and what was best for Tim. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk like she thought she could manipulate her way out of this one. She shot back that I was overreacting, that I was being unreasonable, and that she loved me. That was the moment I realized her words were just that, words. They meant nothing anymore. I felt a wave of rage wash over me, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I wouldn't be lied to anymore, that I was done pretending everything was okay. I told her she'd ruined everything, and I didn't know if I could forgive her. She said she'd leave if that's what I wanted, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't sorry. She was just angry that I caught her, that I was taking away her chance to keep fooling herself and everyone else. In the end, I decided I had to protect myself and my son. I filed for divorce a few days later. I told her I wanted nothing from her, no money, no custody battle, just to be done. I wanted to get as far away from her lies as possible. Moving out was a huge step, and honestly, it broke my heart. I never imagined I'd be walking away from my marriage, from the woman I loved. But I also knew that staying would be worse, living in a lie, constantly doubting her, and feeling like I was just a pawn in her game. Now I'm in this strange place where I'm trying to rebuild my life piece by piece. I see my son every day, and that's what keeps me going. I reflect a lot on what I've learned from all this. Trust is fragile, and it can be shattered in a second. I've learned to listen to my gut, to pay attention to the signs, and most importantly, to never ignore when something feels off. The pain of betrayal is still fresh, but I know I'll get through it. And honestly, I hope others realize that sometimes you have to walk away, even if it hurts, because staying can hurt even more in the long run. Looking back, I realize that betrayal changes you, whether you want it to or not. The trust I once had in Lisa is shattered forever, and I don't think I'll ever see her the same way again. But I've also learned something else through all this chaos. Sometimes, walking away is the only way to save what's left of your sanity and dignity. I've come to understand that love doesn't mean blindly trusting someone who keeps hurting you, even if it's someone you swore to spend your life with. Now, I focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece. I've started therapy, trying to deal with the anger and sadness, and to make sense of how I let someone so close to me betray me in such a cruel way. My son, Tim, is the only reason I still get out of bed some days. I want to be the dad he deserves, someone he can look up to, even if my own world is falling apart. Seeing him reminds me that I have a purpose, that I need to be strong, not just for myself but for him. Honestly, I can't say I'm completely healed or that I've moved past everything. I still have nights where I lie awake thinking about what she did, about how easily she lied to my face. But I also know I've taken control of my life again. I've realized that sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is choosing to walk away from someone who hurts you, no matter how much it tears you apart in the moment. If I could give any advice to someone in my situation, it would be this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Investigate. And don't be afraid to walk away if it turns out that your partner has been lying or betraying you. It's going to hurt like hell, but in the long run, it's better to be alone than to stay in a relationship built on lies. Love is supposed to lift you up, not break you down. I don't regret what I've been through because it's made me realize what I deserve. And what I deserve now is honesty, respect, and someone who values me, not someone who cheats, lies, and manipulates. I'll keep moving forward, learning to trust again, but never forgetting the lesson I learned the hard way. That sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away before it's too late.